diminishing number of Beatles to meet, unfortunately.
Yes, sir. But the music will live on forever.
Exactly.
There you go. Rekha Basu is here from the Des Moines Register, and good to see you.
Good to see you too. Sorry I couldn't make it in last week. I was a little bit snowed in.
I was going to say the weather's a little bit different than it was a week ago
Quite
today.
a bit different, and it's supposed to get more and more different in the next couple of days.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely beautiful. But despite being home or in our studio, you're keeping on top of things that are happening in our world, including politics.
I am trying to. So my gosh, such a big breaking story overnight that we need to talk about. I think it torpedoes all the other news that we have in front of us. Even the suspicion that Kim Jong-un of North Korea might have had his own half-brother murdered. Did you know that?
I hear her rumblings.
That's
about
the latest.
Well, I was going to say, I know two women, they're saying did it, but you're saying it's because Kim Jong-un told them to go do
There's some
it.
speculation.
It's just my half-brother, go take care of that.
Those women were dispatched to Malaysia, or maybe they lived there, apparently, according to this allegation, because his half-brother wanted him dead. Anyway.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. That's what the
Allegedly.
suspicion is.
Allegedly.
Exactly.
All
Now,
right.
no, but I mean, speaking of allegations and speaking of suspicions and the stuff of spy novels, so what is going on between the Trump administration and Russia? This is the question that is on the table and on everyone's minds this morning. So first we have his national security advisor, General Flynn, having to resign this week.
23 days.
23 days in. Okay, 23 days in. Because, and this is how very carefully Kellyanne Conway, the spokesperson for Donald Trump, is framing it, because he lied to the vice president and claimed that he did not have interactions with the Russians, right? He didn't have high-level interactions with the Russians. But notice how those words were parsed. Only lied to the vice president because, it now turns out, the president himself was clued in on this, supposedly, weeks ago. And even before his swearing in and taking office, there were these high-level communications going on between senior-level Trump campaign officials and the Russians. What was that all about?
That's what we need to find out.
That's what we need to find out. But here's the speculation and here's the theory. So at the same time that President Obama announces that there will be sanctions against Russia, on the very same day, there are conversations held between Flynn and I think one other person and Russia and high-level Russian officials. And then Russia tweets out or announces that it's not going to affect relations with the U.S., this threat of sanctions. And then Donald Trump tweets out, good for Russia, that's great. Okay, so apparently, as the story goes, that's because he had been placated, right? Putin had been placated by the Trump administration because they were potentially saying, we won't impose those sanctions on you when the administration takes office if you do this for us. So what else is going on with the Russians at that time?
Good. Well, I'm going to go back to that point for a second. Do you think it's one of these situations where maybe somebody was on the phone and says, you're going to do what? Yeah, okay. Well, hang on just a second. Pick up another phone. You're who? Okay, just a second. All right, we'll talk to you later. And then grabs the second phone and was able to determine that, no, maybe this won't be so bad. You think that type of situation unfolded in Russia?
No, I don't think so, because what the FBI is saying is that their investigation shows it was the number and the frequency of high-level communications between the two that really piqued their curiosity. Because yes, there can be one random phone call here or there, and this administration is coming in, they want to, create their own relationship with a new government. But at the very most basic level, if that were the case, that there were all these communications, what is this incoming administration doing, trying to interfere with existing relationships with another country even before it's in office? I mean, wouldn't there be something very wrong about that on a diplomatic level and on a purely, country being together, standing together as one level?
Because you're implying this was all taking place during the Obama administration.
Well, that's what the FBI is saying. I'm not implying it.
Oh, okay.
That's what the FBI found, is that this all happened after Trump had been elected, but before he was sworn into office. So he had these campaign officials, right, who were doing this. And Actually, no, I'm sorry, not after he had been elected, because it was before Hillary Clinton's emails erupted. That whole thing that FBI was investigating Hillary Clinton's emails, and again, revised this kind of white elephant about Clinton's emails having been, there having been more of them or whatever, which turned out to not be true. So this is actually while Trump is still campaigning. And then the question is, what kind of deal might the Trump administration have made with the Russians to hack Clinton's email and DNC emails in order to swing the election in Trump's favor? And this, I know this sounds like a wild-eyed theory, but this is the way it's shaping up to point.
This is the way the information is unfolding, is what
Exactly.
you're saying.
This is where the information is unfolding. I mean, what other reason could
It
there
sounds
have
like a movie plot.
Doesn't it?
It really does.
It sounds like a movie plot. Now, the next question becomes, so unless there are going to be enough Republicans in the Senate and on the Senate Intelligence Committee who are going to be able to start asking the tough questions of the Trump administration, where does this go? It has to be investigated. The FBI is already doing its own investigation, but Congress needs to investigate too. Or is this just going to become one of those partisan things where the Democrats want to investigate and the Republicans are saying no? Already, Trump's response to this overnight breaking story about these senior level contacts is that it's a disgruntled Hillary Clinton campaign trying to, once again, excuse her loss to him in some fashion.
Would they be able to make that connection, saying this happened back when Obama put sanctions on Russia, so therefore they said, no, if you sway it this direction, we'll make sure that doesn't happen? Is there any way?
They actually have the chronology in place, right? So they know exactly that on the same day, on the same day that the Obama administration is announcing sanctions, there's this conversation going on between the Russians and Trump campaign officials, and then Russia seems to be placated, and Trump is praising Russia, and even going so far as to say publicly, go ahead, intercept. Remember that? Remember that comment?
So are they trying to save face by getting rid of Flynn and saying, okay, we're handling the situation,
well,
and
that's,
this didn't really happen?
So, I think that they probably wouldn't have had to get rid of Flynn had it not been that the vice president said very publicly and on national television that it's totally bogus, any allegation that Flynn had this kind of contact. And then it turns out, yes, he had,
mentioned that,
right?
That could have been it. Yeah.
So exactly, so they had to get rid of him. But the bigger question is, what did the president himself know? And what did he approve of? And who's going to look into that? I mean, this is about national security.
And when?
And when? Yeah. And so now, we have a new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who is just, is completely loyal to Donald Trump and is a complete partisan. And even during his, what happened during his hearings, this whole thing about Elizabeth Warren trying to, read a piece by Coretta Scott King and being silenced and by Mitch McConnell. So this is a very partisan situation.
Yeah, but it went on to be read anyway, which was at a later time.
Not by her, though.
Yeah,
right?
but not by her, though.
Yeah.
But not by her,
right.
Which was very unusual.
Exactly, exactly. So I was, just on the way over here this morning, I was listening to NPR, and there's a senator from Maine by the name of King. Angus King is his name, and he's a Democrat, and he says he is going to make sure, he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, he's going to make sure that there is an investigation done by that committee. But of course, the Democrats are in a minority, so how much clout does he have? I guess what I really think is important right now is for Iowans who are concerned in any way about this to contact our senators and say, this really doesn't look good. What is going on here? Can we get to the bottom of it? And will you speak up for having, transparent investigations into what happened, even though, he's a member of your party, Donald Trump, and he got elected fair and square. What is going on? Do you care or not? Because so far, it just doesn't, as Trump has been issuing these executive orders, one day, and hiring people to his cabinet, like Betsy DeVos, to be the education secretary, and she has absolutely no experience in education, or at least in public education. I don't think she ever set foot in a public school. Or, closing the door on Muslims from certain countries. All of these things, our senators are just lining up behind him and supporting him. I've been talking to Iowans and getting copies of communications between Iowans who have been writing to both senators, especially Grassley, and saying and expressing their concerns, and they're just getting back these form letters, dismissing everything. So at what point does that start to turn?
Well, it turns when the people realize that they are the ones that hire these people to represent them. And if
Right.
they're not representing them, then they need to do something about it.
Right, but what can they do? They have to wait till the next election? I mean, so much more can happen between now and then, and will.
But you need to start making steps in that direction.
You
though.
need
if,
to start
if
making.
in fact you want change, if you like the way things are, then you know,
Right.
that's great. But if you don't and you want something to change, you're going to have to start taking steps.
Yes, but wouldn't you also say that some responsibility to the truth and to the integrity of our nation and its electoral process and its foreign relations goes to those senators who are
Would have to
representing
be,
us?
yes. Would have to.
So please hold them accountable in whatever, flood their town hall meetings, which is already happening.
I was going to say, it's already happening with local issues. As
Exactly,
well as
with
what's
local
happening in our
issues, and
country.
even around the country. A lot of people are showing up at town hall meetings who are upset with executive orders and appointments and confronting their elected officials. But, a lot more of that needs to happen now because this is really serious, guys.
Yeah, people can't just sit back anymore.
No,
If you
they
want-
can't.
If you want
Everybody
if you want
has to
answers.
take a stand and ask questions, or
Okay.
at least be curious. At least wonder, at least ask the questions, what is going on? Don't necessarily jump to any conclusion. There may be other explanations. It just doesn't look real good right now.
All right.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you for having this political discussion with us.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rekha.
My pleasure.
It is 8:51 right now. Stick around. We will be right back. And when we come back, wait till you hear what a high school kid did on Valentine's Day. Gentlemen, this kid set the bar pretty high. We'll tell you what that is next.